What's going on, guys? Everybody, lock in for a second. We have a brand new 3AB. It's still called 3rd Assault Brigade, but it's actually 3rd Assault Corps, I believe. But 3rd Assault Brigade might be underneath 3rd Assault Corps, kind of like Azov Brigade is underneath Azov Corps. I don't know about that actually. Anyways, they only drop really cool content, man. So we're gonna watch this. We're gonna jump into it. First, I have to say thank you guys so much for all the love lately. I've been posting a lot more and more regularly as well, and I've been getting a ton of comments about just a lot of support, and you guys saying that you're loving the upload rate and the type of content. So thank you guys. We're on our way to 50,000 subs, you guys. So please like, share, subscribe, share this video with anybody you think might like it, or maybe they know somebody that might like it, because that really helps push these videos through the algorithm, which helps more people see this content, which helps more people understand what's happening in Ukraine, which in turn, hopefully, the Ukrainians win the war. Okay, so lastly, and then we're gonna go. John and Patrick we're still finishing, or we're still doing our fundraiser for John and Patrick's drone team. Watch this real quick.
Hello everyone from Different Breed. My name is John from Sweden. This is Patrick from Norway. We've been in Ukraine for 4 years now. We are transitioning into drones and we're taking drone classes right now, and we need your help. We are launching a fundraiser for controllers, ground station cables, antennas and goggles. We're very thankful for all you guys' help up until this point. It means a lot to us, and a lot of the work we've been doing down here wouldn't be possible without you guys' help. So we truly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, and Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
If you want to donate to Ukraine, but you want to see where your money's actually going, consider donating to these guys. Once they're up and rocking, which we're over halfway there to the goal. Once they're up in combat active, we're going to receive some of their footage that I can show you guys so you can see where your actual money's going, okay? Anyways, I will shut up and let's jump into the 3rd Assault Brigade. It says, be careful. There are none of ours in the sky. FPV assault and capture of the Bastards GoPro 3s. Don't even know what that means, but it's gonna be sick. Guarantee it. Let's go.
Не прошло.
Що він сказав?
Це не наша пташка.
250 метрів десь.
Плюс. Дієм. Давай, дистанція. Плюс. Кір, почув?
Плюс. Ну да, це п'ятий. Да, точно петух. 100% з рюкзаками.
Це де вони є? Два.
Да, давайте в Києві відправ.
Ще два там біля. Зараз буде.
Поняв.
Да, щоб зустріли.
Там по дорозі, по головній дорозі, з півночі в вашу сторону. Ідуть два.
А ми так і думали.
Давай чекаємо зараз, куди вони підуть.
Значить там рухається БТГ.
Плюс, бачим.
Рух на тебе.
Лупила і фішка прямо по них.
Вони біжать прямо на вас по галявині. Зустрічайте, з півдня біжать.
Сиди.
Мы приняли бой, двоих на той стороне подсидели. Мы вдвоем, Кир и я, возле меня, возле пенька.
Плюс, ви на снігу, плюс. Бачимо вас і бачимо нижче, південніше.
Плюс они мы одного сейчас еще стоит где-то там один, два.
Одного з***ли, походу, кажуть.
Давай, підлітай до усієї.
Це якраз той думає петух, він там не залишився.
Да.
Хай задумається.
Тікає! Друже, це один.
Так как принял, где он есть?
Один під залишився лежати, інший на захід. Якщо спостерігаєте його, відкривайте вогонь.
Видишь его? Мы его не бачим, все, он ушел от нас.
Давай спробуємо роздивитися його, чи він ціленький там, чи не дуже.
Так, жує, як рот щось у нього.
На слайд закинув.
Реально жує.
Диви, рухається, ні?
Так. Рухається.
Що, спостерігайте сектора, той, походу, теж живий, порухається, відповзає, ви до 300 його.
Танкуешь? Пошли. Где компанир? Оце?
Подивися, там повинна бути нора повинна бути укриття, друже. Там точно в норі були викопки.
Ну сейчас посмотрим, давай сейчас все просмотрим. Кир, давай на расстоянии, на дистанции.
Ну, ось що вона, її немає.
На оружие валяются. Давай где-то спрячемся. Мы отойдем. Мы отойдем сейчас. Тут на все. Мы ближе. Там есть кто-то, да? Контакт сейчас. Да?
Плюс.
Еще одну давай. Они того добивают.
Вони біля неї.
Все, повідом же. Скажи, що тут.
Мамай, от зараз, да, підійдіть до тієї дирки, до дирки, прямо підійдіть, да, до неї.
Друже, дирку саму цю, да, от ви зараз правильно, да.
А? Будем заходить? Давай еще гранату, может.
Іди синку. Так, стой. Стой.
Там вже сидіти.
Там бліндаж, чи там нора якась всередині викопана. Треба зрозуміти.
А, контакт, там.
Плюс.
Там всередині хто є.
Зачищайте.
Кидай гранату. Иду ближе.
Dude. So they went to get into that foxhole. There was a Russian in there.
Отойди, отошли.
Давай жить будем.
Обрывай. Цинкую.
Да, провода повидергувати ці оці пауки, щоб в них не було зв'язку.
Може, за радійку витягнув.
Давай гранати.
На.
Давай тебе гранати, брат. Давай. Давай, ти підтягуйся. Ти сюди.
Тримай так.
Кидай. Давай. Давай, жить буде.
Цинкуй.
Підходь, закидай. Підходь, закидай всі. Вилазиш? Ні!
Друже, скажіть йому, щоб здавався, бо закидайте його гранатами.
Казали, не хоче по нам. Знаєш, що гранату? Є? Кидай. Відходь.
Повилай! Вилазь, па!
He's still shooting.
Нормально.
Зашла?
Вилазиш?
Економте БК і кошмарте його. В нього закінчиться і на цьому все завершиться.
Плюс, кошмарим.
Давай, заходь.
Давай.
Туди залазити не потрібно зараз. Потрібно петуха звідти викурити.
Сушара.
Good advice.
Ти хочеш жити, да? Боє.
Птичка висит, чья-то птичка. Не прошло, провода обрезали провода, он там не выходит.
Мамай, ви пташку візуально спостерігаєте?
Бачу.
Ми до вас не контрольне небо.
Плюс. Еще небо на контроле. Давай тут укрытие займем пока.
Збийте, попробуйте її збити. Якщо ви її візуально спостерігаєте, збийте її.
Небо контроль, не наша пташка может быть. Наших пташек тут нету.
Мамай, ви пташку збили? Ви пташку збили?
Стріляйте по пташці.
Плюс.
Да, збили.
Красавчики, молодці.
They shot it.
Подивіться, можливо, там є ще один вихід якийсь. Подивіться там навколо, вам видніше, як краще. Вот жить будемо! Сушара, блядь! Мамай, дивись, зараз відпрацюємо туди бомбером. Потім ви підійдете, знову запитаєте, як самопочуття. Якщо не здаються, ми будемо знову туди бомбером працювати.
Плюс.
Тіло вже сорвано, це ж голова.
Голова.
О, хороший русский,
Цікаво, що трапилось, що на зв'язок не виходять. Може батарейки розрядилися.
Так невдобно вийшло.
Ну, вбити Сталіна це круто, ні?
Так, це що?
Ще Берія, Ленін, Кентаві,
Троцький.
Троцький, да. О, здаюся, походу, а ну.
Плюс, все, давай, красавчики,
Здаються?
хай виходять. Вони здаються, правильно? Так? Я?
Пацани, прийміть. Пацани, прийміть.
Wow, that was killer. Just like I said at the beginning, they only release just this such good content, man. That was crazy though. I mean, I guess what boggles my mind every single time when I see that kind of an encounter is how many grenades go into one of those holes and how the people are still alive inside. And we've seen video and photos, and I've even seen in person inside these trenches. There'll be basically smaller dugouts to where they can crawl into because they're anticipating if they get pushed, the grenades are going to come in. So they make like little hidey holes within their hidey hole. But even those, man, it's like you would think those wouldn't be enough to protect from 10 frags, right? But those guys seem fine. They secured them and got them as POWs, and they'll be exchanged for Ukrainian soldiers. So that was pretty badass, dude. And I wanted to watch this one, you guys. This is a Preston Short video. It says Ukraine's brutal exchange rate is $882 per soldier. So I've had this sent to me a couple of times by a couple of you guys, and I really want to watch it. So let's jump into it.
So it now costs Ukraine just $882 to kill a Russian soldier. That is a historically low figure, and a major reason why over the last 5 months, Russia has lost more soldiers to Ukrainian drones than they've been able to recruit into the military. Put another way, the Russian army continues to get smaller. In fact, Alexander Bonov of the Carnegie Endowment said, quote, even the most patriotic pro-war Russian bloggers have stopped calling for general mobilization because it would only mean more people killed by drones. Now, this data comes from the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces, where they issued their monthly report a few days ago saying, quote, exchanging an enemy's carcass for a drone worth $300 to $500 is the best exchange rate in the world. They said they have carefully calculated this system over the course of the last 11 months, and the cost to kill a Russian soldier has come out to $882. Now, of course, we've got to put that in some context. What does that mean historically? And the bottom line is, it is a fraction of what it has cost throughout previous wars to kill an enemy combatant. Looking at modern weapon systems here, especially from the United States, we've got a Hellfire missile, roughly $150,000 per unit. JDAM kits, so the Joint Direct Attack Munition, that's the guidance kit that goes onto a dumb bomb, a couple thousand for a dumb bomb, but the JDAM itself, $25,000, or the JDAM kit. 155 millimeter artillery shell, so a dumb howitzer round, roughly $3,000 to $4,000. And then you've got the FPV drones now being churned out by Ukraine at an industrial scale, $400 to $1,000. Now, the 882 is not the cost of one system, because Ukraine loses drones, they get shot down, and sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 strikes to actually kill a Russian soldier. It is not one-to-one. So it's not a fair comparison to look at something like I have on this chart here, a Javelin, and say one Javelin to destroy a tank. Well, it might take 15 drones to destroy a tank. But when you look at the weapon system to weapon system, the cost that Ukraine has rolled out with these FPVs is staggering. Now, going back through history, even this cost of $882 in 2026 dollars is crazy low, right? So you might go back to World War I or World War II and say, well, there were no smart munitions. Everything was a dumb artillery round or small arms ammo. Certainly a round from a 30-06 or a 9mm costs less than $882. It does. But we expended, the world, I should say, expended so many munitions in World War I and World War II that the cost per kill was actually staggeringly high. Now, this is far from an exact science, so you can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes here, but there was an estimate that in World War II, it took U.S. soldiers 445,000 rounds to kill one enemy combatant. Think of the math that goes into that. The number of rounds that are fired versus the number of German or Japanese soldiers that were found killed or confirmed killed. 45,000 rounds ends up being a little bit more than $882. So no matter how you look at this, that is an incredibly cost-effective way for Ukraine to eliminate the attacking army on their territory. We have to keep this in mind. When you're talking about cost restriction, and, we're seeing this with the Shahed drones coming out of Iran right now, targeting U.S. bases, and I believe that's what was used to kill U.S. service members in Kuwait. Our adversaries are looking at the more cost-effective ways. They're not trying to come up with necessarily the fastest, hypersonic maneuverable ICBM that we aren't going to be able to shoot down that costs millions of dollars or more. They're coming up with low-cost ways to swarm, to overwhelm air defense systems. Ukraine is leading the charge in this sense with their FPVs, and it is taking a serious toll on the Russian army. Russian mill blogger Maxim Klishnikov said, quote, on the front, there's an obvious stalemate. The armed forces of Ukraine are capturing the lower sky. How do we advance in such conditions when the logistics are also being hit? And what that's led to over the course of the last 6 to 12 months are just staggering Russian casualties. In fact, we'll get into it here in a minute. We've got the newest estimate of confirmed Russian losses in this war, and it's shocking. Like, we do not have a good comparison here in the United States. Spoiler alert, it's like 3 times higher than all U.S. losses from every conflict since World War II combined. Like, I don't know how we compare anything to that, all right? In fact, Russia's losses in Ukraine, just the confirmed ones, are coming up on, well, we'll get into that in a second. U.S. losses in World War II, and it's probably a lot higher than that. Now,
excuse me, I'm glad he's going to get into that, because I've looked through the numbers, and living here in Ukraine, you see every single day reminders of the toll on both sides of the war. You get reminders every day of how drastic these numbers are, and I don't think a lot of people are fully understanding or grasping the sheer amount of KIA in this war.
Getting back into this issue that Russia is facing at the front, trying to face down the Ukrainian drones, the SBS data set that they released, Unmanned Systems Forces released just a few days ago, they said for 5 consecutive months, the balance of arrived, departed has been maintained by drones. So what they're saying is this balance of Russia is not able to make up the difference. There were a couple months early in the year where more Russian soldiers were killed than were recruited, which was a staggering feat. Since then, it hasn't necessarily been that dramatic. I think it was January, saw the most significant difference. Hasn't been as dramatic, but Russia has not been able to make up that difference still. They say on the negative increase of the occupying grouping in figures, according to the provided data, in the period from December 2025 to April 2026, the enemy mobilized and recruited 148,000 personnel. At the same time, confirmed enemy losses from strikes exclusively by drones amount to 156,000 personnel. That's according to the...
Oh my God. December, January, February, March, April, 5 months, 100, we'll round up, 157,000 losses. Only drones. That's not counting the small arms or the indirect fire from artillery, mortars. Holy cool.
Delta situational awareness system. So again, more people killed by drones, more Russians killed by drones than Russia was able to recruit into their military. Of course, we know there are other mechanisms being used on the battlefield to eliminate Russian soldiers. There are mines, there are small arms, there is still artillery, there are airstrikes being carried out, but just drones. So FPV, short-range, first-person view strike drones, to the bombers, to the long-range strike drones, accounted for 156,000 killed between December and April. Killed or seriously wounded, I should say. They say for the 5th month in a row, it has been possible to maintain that balance. And this is one of the most important tasks of the direct impact of the unmanned systems forces on the combat readiness and pressure on the enemy. They quoted the commander, Brovdi, said, quote, exchanging enemy resources for the plastic and iron of a drone is one of the most cost-effective exchange rates in modern warfare. I would argue it is the most cost-effective. And again, to go down that rabbit hole, you get into the development costs of all of these different weapon systems, right? The cost to fire a Hellfire is, you can really get into like how much time and energy and resources went into developing that system. You could do the same thing here. That's not the accounting mechanism that the SBS rolled out. They went simply the cost of the munition, but just based off of how low cost the development has been, something tells me that if we get into that rabbit hole and start comparing, the Switchblade, for instance, or the Hellfire, or the GBU, or the JDAM, the overall cost to develop and implement those is probably going to be even higher than what we're looking at with a weapon system to weapon system direct comparison. Brovdi said,
yeah, and you got it. It's such a good point, right? You have to think that, let's say it takes 10 U.S. service personnel to, from start to finish, put together a JDAM, for example. And so then you would take their salaries, right? And then add up the amount of days, full days that they spent working on these JDAMs, do some math, figure out how much money the U.S. government paid these 10 U.S. service personnel. Add that on top of the raw number of the munition price. and you could probably add more and more.
Think about this. Quote, the drone line must close along the entire front line as soon as possible. To achieve this, we must make up 5% of the total personnel of the Ukrainian armed forces. Currently, it is 2.5%. 2.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces are in the unmanned systems forces.
Wow.
And they are accounting for staggering losses on the Russian side. So what Brovdi is advocating for here is an expansion of that drone force. And we're seeing this across the force where unit after unit are developing dedicated drone companies, dedicated drone battalions, drone regiments, and so on. The unmanned systems forces is just one conglomeration of that. It's kind of the official grouping is the best way to put it. But I mean, even the unit that we've been supporting through Car for Ukraine, the Seraphims, the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade, that is a unit that was so effective with drones, they went from company to battalion size. Brovdi is saying, imagine if we double the size of the unmanned systems forces. Even then, it's only 5% of the overall makeup of the Ukrainian military. There's a lot of room to go, and Ukraine is proving right now just how effective these systems and these units can be. In fact, a Ukrainian officer, callsign Alex, over on Telegram, said, quote, even a huge swarm of idiots, they have their own, talking about the Russians, they have their own resources and they are not infinite. If half a year ago these idiots could afford to conduct regular assaults, albeit without armor, then now it's a rarity unless one of their commanders comes up with an incredible plan. Due to the shortage of idiots, they have given up on constant assaults and instead opted for the tactic of infiltration, the most risk-free and deepest possible penetration through our forward position, which for several years now have not formed a continuous line on either side. But this doesn't always work, as the enemy is unable to accumulate enough manpower for more or less large-scale actions, since 60 to 70% of all idiots are either killed or don't make it to the front line. Again, going back to a conversation with Uno over a year ago at this point, I think one of the fighters in Azov International talked about how infiltration is such an effective tactic if you don't care about losses. And that's all I can think of when this pops up over and over again. We saw how many of these Russians were killed in sub-zero temperature. Like in the middle of winter, they were just out there trucking across open terrain, standing out like a sore thumb, sometimes pulling these quote, thermal tarps over their head to make it look like they couldn't be seen with thermal optics. And it was, I mean, they were clear as day. Like they stood out. And they were, especially when they would continue to move. And just one after the other getting eliminated. And that hasn't stopped. We're still seeing that today. So yes, some get through, but it's nowhere near enough for Russia to accumulate forces and actually use that to spearhead an additional advance. I want to stress, though, the infiltration tactic is a headache, and it causes problems. It forces Ukrainian drone units and logistics to start covering 360-degree security, have to back up from the positions they were operating at. So there's an issue there, no doubt. But a lot of these Russians are just getting sent straight into the slaughter. I mean, there's no other way to say it at this point. Callsign Alex said, quote, in a short period of time, the enemy will face a more pronounced crisis in their offensive potential, and their overall warfare tactics are becoming exhausted. Therefore, the advance of these idiots is almost non-existent now, and the idiots are dying very quickly. I would say on an industrial scale, which creates major personnel problems, or rather, their critical shortage. Again, Russia is going to have to find some way around this. We haven't seen it yet. Infiltration was the adaptation to the Ukrainian drone line. When Ukraine started knocking out Russian armored vehicles, they said, enough, let's downgrade that to motorcycles and ATVs and try to get these guys closer to the front before they're spotted. Again, this is not unique, right? Russia and Ukraine are seeing things for tens of kilometers. They have complete ISR over the battlefield. The difference is that Ukraine is on the defensive. They're waiting for Russians to come to them, and the Russian commanders have this incentive to constantly be on the attack. Mm-hmm. They have to go. They have to push. If they're not advancing, they're failing. So what this means is this battlefield that both sides are watching 24/7 is getting flooded with Russian soldiers every single day. The Ukrainians are staying in their defensive positions and at times carrying out very deliberate, relatively small-scale clearance operations, but across the entire front, especially in the south and the east, we're seeing Russian soldiers every single day exit their fighting position and cross their fingers, hope for the best. Maybe they won't be the one spotted by Ukrainian drones, but most of them are. Now, turning to the overall casualty figures, we had an interesting assessment rolled out the other day from Mediazona and Medusa, putting together their most recent, their first of 2026 casualty estimates of the Russians. They said based on the probate registry, it puts the number of male Russian citizens aged 18 to 59 killed in the war between the start of the full-scale invasion and the end of 2025 at 352,000. They say that estimate only covers Russian citizens whose deaths have been officially confirmed. So another way to say that, that number's low. All right, so that is only going up to the end of 2025. So we're already missing 5 months worth of data.
Because we know, based off of what we've seen here and experience, the Russians don't collect their debt. And that is pretty much the number one way you can confirm a KIA. That number is drastically low.
They say that is on the low side even then. And we do have estimates from Ukraine, from the UK, and from the United States that put Russian losses above that. And this is killed in action. This is not casualties. So when you hear the term casualty, that can mean killed, wounded, missing, or taken prisoner. This is exclusively killed. 352,000 on the low side killed. For reference, if we go with that low side number, that means Russia is creeping up on all U.S. losses during World War II. You know, the global war that we fought. I mean, we lost soldiers across the entirety of the Pacific, right? Across much of Europe, down through Italy and North Africa. Here, we're talking about Russian losses in a few oblasts in eastern Ukraine. It's staggering.
Literally. A few oblasts. Holy cow, man. These numbers are absurd. I'm so glad we're watching this.
Figures at this point. Again, 352,000 on the low side. Those are only the ones that they have been able to confirm. It doesn't count, to my understanding, prisoners. The Wagner soldiers may or may not be included in that, and we're missing all of 2026 at this point, plus any of the foreigners that are recruited into the Russian military and or tricked to serve with Russia. So, yeah, the losses are absolutely out of control. And that is, Russia is a big country. They have a lot of manpower. It is not infinite, especially for the gains they are making at this scale. It cannot go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if they try to adapt or adopt some new type of tactic, because this current set is not getting Russia any closer to achieving their objectives in this war. Now, I did want to give you guys a quick update on some fundraisers. We wrapped up the Car for Ukraine spring campaign. Again, we're working with Car for Ukraine for the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade. Great unit, drone unit now. So they've got the Seraphims drone battalion. We have wrapped up the winter and the spring campaign already. We've got probably 2 more coming up before the end of the year, but this is a years-long campaign. So you can head over to the website, be linked in the pinned comment in the description below, and you can get a couple different things. So they've got patches, which are pretty cool, from Seraphim, and then we got dedicated ones for these for this campaign. I also just started a collaboration with Car for Ukraine for some shirts. I don't have it on today. I had it on yesterday, but it's the Car for Ukraine design, and 100% of proceeds or profits from that sale goes directly to Car for Ukraine. So if you want the patches, head over to the Car for Ukraine website. If you're looking for a shirt and still an ability to donate to the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade, check out the link to the shop with the Car for Ukraine shirts in the description below. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, definitely check out Car for Ukraine. I think I told you guys last time we watched a Preston video was I was with Preston here in Ukraine, or yeah, when he went to pick up a couple of these vehicles, and they are the real deal, dude. These guys, the Car for Ukraine organization takes these vehicles, basically completely refurbishes them internally and externally, and up armors them. So they've got this thick, heavy steel armor on it, and they're really cool. So also another great way to support Ukraine. I just wanted to say, man, those numbers are absolutely absurd. And I said in the middle of this that, you know, you get reminders of the losses living here in Ukraine every single day. And they didn't even mention the Ukrainian losses, just the Russian losses. But even with that said, with the constant reminders, I'm still blown away by those numbers. It's I think saying they're being killed at an industrial scale is the absolute most accurate way to describe it. An industrial scale. And if you watch Preston's videos, he talks a lot about this drone wall that Ukraine is trying to complete, basically. And essentially it's this kill zone area, right? So there's the gray zone, which is like, if you picture between, the gray zone is no man's land. Russia trench line here, Ukraine trench line here, the space in between is the gray zone, if you will. That's not the kill zone. The kill zone is way bigger. It's basically everywhere that could be affected very easily by anything that can kill you. And if Ukraine can make this kill zone larger and larger, and then basically standardize it across the front line, creating this massive buffer to where the second, this is an exaggeration, but within a couple of minutes, an enemy enters that wall, that drone wall or that red zone, drones are just swarming them. I think that's the idea, and I think that's a great idea. And what I see happening, and I feel it in my gut, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but I see eventually, I don't know when this is, but finally Putin saying, okay, we'll come to the negotiation table, the negotiating table, and we will we're willing to have a buffer zone. We'll keep the land that we already occupy, but we'll no longer proceed into Ukraine any longer, continue attacking Ukraine anymore. I see Russia coming to the table with this offer, and I see the Ukrainian people saying, F you, get out of our land, and not taking this offer, which to me makes plenty of sense. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't take that offer either. And then the American administration is going to paint the Ukrainian president as evil, basically, because he's refusing to agree to this peace deal that gives Russia all the occupied land, including still keeping the land they stole back in 2014, Crimea and part of Donbass. And Trump is going to be like, see, Zelensky never wanted peace all along. He doesn't want peace. This isn't even on Putin. Putin wants peace. It's Zelensky. But in reality, Zelensky can't even make that agreement himself. The people have to vote when it comes to seceding territory, basically telling the government that, yeah, we're fine to give up that land. The people have to vote for that. So even if Zelensky was completely on board with that, he can't just sit down and sign it off. No, it has to go to a vote. And I guarantee, mark my words, the Ukrainian people will not take that. Absolutely not. Everybody here, everybody I meet is somehow affected by the war, whether they've lost a loved one, a family member, or they've been injured themselves. They are not going to be okay with Russia even closer now than they were 4 years ago, and giving up 20% of Ukrainian territory. It's not going to happen. Anyways, this was such a good video, man. Do me a favor, please share this one around. Not only was it cool with the 3rd Assault Brigade footage, but these numbers are staggering and they need to be seen elsewhere. And I know this is a smaller channel. Odds of this content reaching more people through my channel isn't massive, but hopefully it will continue to grow, and we will continue to meet more people with this kind of content, ideally like Preston does and his massive platform. So anyways, that's all I got. I love you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.